Fellow teachers, what experiences have you had with dumb parents? Now, I don't want to call any parents dumb. In my experience, they're mostly doing the best they can for their kids, even if that best isn't what we'd hope for. However, I did have a student who came to my student teaching classroom 2 grades below reading level, and similarly behind in other subjects. She really wanted to learn, but she had some cognitive issues that didn't qualify her for special ed, but meant that she required a lot of time and personal attention to learn well. And for that entire school year, I worked individually with her before and after school while she was waiting for the bus or after she'd been dropped off, and often during her recess and our gym library, which she had asked me to do because she wanted to learn and wanted the one-on-one attention. She improved markedly in reading and in writing, which is what we were concentrating on. She wasn't caught up at the end of the year, but she was a hell of a lot closer. She failed that year, but because she had a speech issue, her parents could decide to send her to the next grade anyway. I tried and tried to convince her parents that she should be held back a year because with another year of intensive help, which I was going to find a way to secure for her, I thought that she could be close to or on grade level and could possibly keep up with the other students after that. They refused because they didn't want the other students to make fun of her. I have no idea what happened after that because I moved to another state, but I bet it wasn't good. Yeah, given how crappy kids can be to other kids, I can't say I blame the parents too hard for their reasoning. Story 2. Not me, but a situation that happened in my school. So we get a new student the last week of May with only 4 weeks of school left. In this school year, this student has only attended 2.5 weeks of school due to school anxiety. He has a whole team of professionals, his mother, and a one-on-one aide that work with him. This is also his third school, kicked out of his 2 previous ones, and he is in 2nd grade. He had a generally good first day, fist bumped his teacher, did a little bit of stuff, then went home and told his mother that it was the worst day in his life. Mom comes up to school all up in arms about how we are ruining her precious little snowflake. The next day, his classroom teacher tried to get him to do some writing with her. The kid looks straight in her eyes and says, "My mother said I don't have to do anything. Are you calling my mother a liar?" Cue mother, the next day, all up in arms again because the teacher called my precious snowflake a liar. So, due to his school anxiety, he doesn't have to do any work, interact with teachers, make any movement whatsoever except sit like a little lump in his seat. The teacher, when giving an assignment to the class, has to specify to him, "But you don't have to do anything if you don't want to." It's by far the stupidest situation I've ever witnessed. Story 3. I'm not a teacher, however, I witnessed a crazy parent while I was in the office during my senior year of high school. So I managed to mess up my leg during gym class and couldn't walk properly, so while I waited for my mom to pick me up, I was in the office, stuck in a chair with an ice pack on my leg. About 10 minutes into my waiting, an angry woman comes storming into the office. It was only myself and the front desk lady in there, with the principal, the dean, and guidance counselor in their separate offices. Anyways, this lady just starts screaming at the lady at the desk who has no control over anything other than answering phones and issuing lunch tickets. "I want to know why my daughter is failing 3 of her classes. Fix it now, you stupid fat cow." The angry mother screamed at this poor innocent lady at the desk. Naturally, all 3 of the big guys come out of their offices. Each of them is trying hard to usher into an office, any office. Crazy mom wasn't having it and demanded to know why her daughter was failing. Of course, no one had any idea who her daughter was because no names were given. After 5 minutes of the crazy mom screaming at the 3 big guys, they finally got the name of her daughter. The teachers who led the classes this girl was failing were called out of their rooms. Luckily, 2 had free periods at the time, so only 1 had to have their class covered. The daughter was pulled into the office as well. Crazy mom was finally ushered into the meeting room with the 3 teachers and dean and guidance counselor. They shut the door, so I didn't get to hear anything else other than a few more shrieks from the crazy mom. I was picked up shortly after that and told my mom all about it. I had to thank my mom for not being a crazy person, but then again, I wasn't failing any of my classes. Story 4. I was a TA in a 3rd grade classroom, and we had the parents of an African American child request to meet with us at the start of the year. They informed us that they did not want their son to learn anything about African American history, like nothing. They did not want him to learn about slavery, the Civil War, civil rights, MLK, nada. They felt this knowledge would hinder him in life and hold him back from reaching his full potential. The teacher and I were shocked but had to do as the parents wished. That February, we studied African American history as many schools in the US do. And each time we had a lesson, we had to send that boy to the library to read for 45 minutes. We couldn't tell him why or what we were doing in the classroom without him. We couldn't display any of our books or projects in the classroom in case he saw them. It was so weird, and the poor kid felt so left out. I don't know whatever happened to him. He's probably in 8th or ninth grade now, and for all I know, he still has no clue about Martin Luther King Jr. To add, this was at a magnet elementary school with a predominantly African American and Hispanic student base. The boy in question appeared normal despite whatever his parents were teaching him or neglecting to teach him at home. He had a lot of friends, was extremely polite, and was crazy about Batman, so I'm assuming he saw some television. We had many other African American students in our classroom, majority of the students in fact, and they were so excited come February. I mentioned the month because February is African American History Month in the US, and when most schools concentrate on it. They were begging to do biographies on famous African Americans, and we couldn't display any of their posters though in case that one boy saw them. Alright, hold on, because I just don't get this one. Like, why would you remove a key piece of context that kid needs to understand about his own history? No, all that kid is going to get is negatives from the media and no positivity. Story 5. Not real names. My mom is K and the other teacher is A. Here's one my mom told me when I asked her the question. It was her first year teaching 5th grade, and she gave her kids a spelling test. She caught a student cheating on that test by changing his answers after grading and insisting it was there before, despite eraser marks, and decided to talk to the student and the parents. My mom is really laid back and often would give her students second chances that the other teachers, who are all stricter than her, would not give. So anyways, my mom calls the parents and says, "Hi, Mr. Smith, I'm calling to inform you I caught your son cheating on a test. Since this is his first time, I will allow him to retake it tomorrow during recess in my class." The dad was furious. He started yelling that his son would never do such a thing, and how my mom was a horrible teacher and started cussing her out. So my mother asked another teacher who had been teaching for a while for help. The other teacher decides to get the principal involved and show the dad how his tantrums will not get him what he wants in this school, and how his childish actions make it worse for his son. And then the principal calls the dad and says, "Hello, Mr. Smith, due to your disapproval of K's teachings and punishments, we feel it would be best for your son to go to Mrs. A's class instead." The dad, thinking he got his way, agreed. What the dad did not know was that the son's new teacher was the strictest in the school and was infamous among the kids. So the boy switched classes, but he was in tears because my mom was the kind of teacher who gave out prizes and never yelled. And now he was leaving that class. The son was actually okay with taking the retake, but the dad was the one who refused. My mom felt pretty bad for the kid. After the end of the day, the teacher comes up to my mom and tells her what she told the father. The teacher called and informed the father that the son will get a 0 on the test he took in my mom's class, will not be getting a retake, and that the son will have no recess for 2 weeks. And the next day, guess who called asking to have their kid put back in my mom's class? The dad probably learned his lesson, and the son probably did too. Story 6. I had a 5th grader blow up on me, shouting and screaming in the hallway. This was sort of the final straw for him. He had a long history of verbal cruelty of staff in the school, and he was suspended for 6 days. Now, state law allows the parents to have an informal meeting with the teacher and the principal of the school. So mom and dad come into this meeting with myself, the principal, and the guidance counselor. Principal introduces everyone. Mom interrupts, saying she has a, quote, major concern that needs to be addressed immediately. She accused the principal of being an imposter and demanded that everyone in the room take out their driver's licenses to prove that we are who we say we are. We all refused, and she battled about this for like 10 minutes or so. Over the course of the next 45 minutes, she ranted about how the principal was an imposter and that this imposter principal, myself, and the superintendent were involved in a conspiracy to remove her son from the school. Can you imagine, like, being in that room and the mom is all like, "I knew it, you're all working together, teachers everywhere on some big conspiracy to fail 5th graders. How dare you not take out your driver's license to prove your identity?" And there you go, more proof, like mother, like son. Mother's a screamer, son's a screamer. And this one just takes the cake for crazy, but we're only halfway through. And since you're already here, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more mad, crazy stories like this one. I'm sure the next one's gonna be a hit too. Story 7. My mother is a K 12 teacher for a charter school that does homeschooling with the teacher checking in and reviewing things about once a week. It's meant for students who have difficulty in the public school system, which can range from dropouts to super smart kids to non English speakers, and parents who don't have the time to do full homeschool. I used to help with grading the math and science stuff, so I have tons of stories. So, one parent during the school year kept taking her daughter on trips to different countries and then asking my mother to extend her work. We're talking about 5 or 6 trips during the year. Now, that would be fine if it was laid out at the start of the school year and they could schedule accordingly. But this parent would make these trips spontaneously. Like, in a few days, we're going to Russia, so she can't meet you next week like we scheduled 2 days ago. Another parent really pissed off my mother. 2 kids, brothers, both seniors, almost done with high school. All that was left was some sort of state testing done in a classroom. One brother shows up, the other one isn't there. My mom, proctor for the exam, asks where his brother is. He replies, he didn't feel like coming. She tells him that this is all he needs to graduate, so text him and get him to come here. He doesn't show. Halfway through the test, the kid's mother storms in the door, yelling at my own mother, telling her off for making her son feel ashamed and humiliated. She flips the table over, no joke, grabs her son, that's there, who looked like he wanted to pass away. Keep in mind he's a senior, so like 17 years old or so, and storms out the door. Both brothers failed to get their high school degree as neither had completed the state test. The crazy mom then writes a scathing email to my mother's supervisor talking about how she had been lying to her, disregarding her problems and her children's education and attempting to sabotage their chance at graduation. So just a bit more explanation about the school. It's a little different. She teaches 1st through 12th grade. Generally, each year she'll take on about 25 to 28 students, and they can be all over the place as far as years go. They aren't necessarily problem students, just students who don't fit well in a public school. She commonly gets people who know English as a second language, which gives them trouble in school. She gets a few crazy intelligent kids who are a year or two ahead of their class, usually because they had excellent homeschooling as a kid, but they're outpacing the scholastic knowledge of the parents. And she gets students that have problems at home with either parents not caring, substances, alcohol in the family, or already have a child. It runs a gamut. One problem she ran into constantly was that ultimately the parents had control in their child's education. While she would meet up with each student regularly, the brunt of their education fell on the parents' shoulders. Teachers for the school were required to be flexible and go with the parents' wishes. There were no core textbooks, no core curriculum. Everything was arranged between the parent and the teacher. This flexibility, while appealing to parents and sometimes successful, often screwed over a lot of the kids and their education. One parent had their child's curriculum changed about 3 times during the year, with each curriculum requiring a new set of books. She completely disregarded the tried and proven curriculum used by past students in favor of whatever she could dig up on Google. Parents who wanted their kids to learn music wanted to use the student funds. Each student had an allowance of sorts, handled by the teacher to spend on school supplies, to purchase guitars or keyboards rather than more useful things such as textbooks. It was always a hassle at the end of the year too, as it was all school property, but many of the parents thought, okay, I'm paying for the education, therefore I own it. So my mother would have to argue with them to get the stuff back, or if she wasn't able to check it into the school, the parents would be fined, and many could not afford the fine for a brand new guitar. I don't have any specific stories better than the crazy mother, but there was a heck of a lot of weird quirks. One pair of parents would hang up mid-phone call if they weren't sure how to answer a question. Another often would schedule to drive her child to meet with my mother at a library, but then not show. She would then request that evening via phone that my mother drive to her house the next morning or something ridiculous like that. We're talking an hour-long drive minimum. Another was very insistent that her daughter stay in this dance troupe, which would spend 4 to 6 hours a day on dance-related stuff. Now, nothing wrong with ambition, and she loved to dance, but the girl was on a path to fail out of high school, and she only stayed in the troupe because her mother made her. Another single parent reassured her kids that it was all right if they didn't pass high school. They could live off of welfare too, not knocking anyone who's on welfare, but to actively encourage choosing welfare over a high school diploma is sick in my opinion. My mom put up with these stupid shenanigans. Most of these students, however quirky or off-kilter their parents were, would wind up with a high school diploma or at least a GED. She said the worst situations were when the parents just plain didn't care about their kids. I'm feeding him and clothing him and paying for his school, and I'm not cruel towards him, so I'm a good parent, so they would say. No emotional support or encouragement or real parenting. Most of the kids would make it at least halfway through high school before deciding that a degree really doesn't matter much. Those cases always tore her up, and they would almost always drop out in their junior or senior year, and she couldn't convince them to just keep on trying. Most parents do care. A lot of parents give better education than the schools do. My mother has had a ton of students, and most of them have decent parents who help their kids get the education they deserve. These cases here are the minority. Story 8. I substituted in high school for 5 months to finish off the year for a teacher who was on maternity leave. So I had a student, a high school senior, who never did any homework, accounted for like 35% of the total grade. I would constantly send emails to the parents who always responded that they'd deal with it. Spoke with the parents at conferences and kept the admin in the loop. 1 week before finals, I sent the notice home that she needed to get a 97% on the final to pass the class and get the credits she needed for graduation. And I even gave her one more chance to turn in past homework for 50% credit. Fast forward to the final, she barely gets a passing grade and therefore can't get the credits, can't graduate, can't enlist in the Air Force like she had intended. The parents come into the office of the school screaming at everyone that they had no clue it would come to this. Now, when we all sat down in an office with the guidance counselor, principal, department head, and myself, I reviewed the several notices with them, explained that she had multiple opportunities to gain credit, etc., but refused to do anything. Turns out the wife was hiding the emails and information from her husband and wanted her daughter to fail so she wouldn't join the Air Force and move away from home. And last I heard from the situation, they're not together anymore. The daughter is working at Lowe's, never finished high school, and has 2 kids and multiple arrests for selling substances. There's a reason I didn't want to pursue teaching as a career after that. Well, the mother got her wish, daughter was manipulated into staying near home, and the lack of a decent relationship between these two will cause the daughter to manipulate her own children to the same effect. The cycle continues. Story 9. Taught college, so my story is nice. I had a student failing horribly, less than 10%, but would not drop. Whatever, not my dime, not my problem. Anyways, grades come in and, I guess, his mother has his password to his account, or perhaps he just told her his grade, F, obviously, and I get an angry email insisting that there's no way he could have failed pre-calculus because, my God, his father is an engineer and the student wants to be an engineer and he just has to be good at math. The best part is, when you turn 18 and go to college, you're treated as an adult, even if you don't act like one. And there's a little box you can check that says, allow my parents to see my records. Most kids don't check it, and by law, I am not allowed to release any records to anyone, even parents. So I politely informed her that her son is considered an adult, and I was not allowed to release any records and that she would have to contact him. Of course, this prompted a long, I'm going to get you fired email that I forwarded to my dean who came to my office for a long laugh. I actually feel pretty bad for the kid. Having a helicopter mom like that at that age will do him no favors. Story 10. So just before Christmas break, I had the students hand in a paper. One of the students was missing a page, so I pulled out the contact sheet that I had the students fill out at the beginning of the year and gave a call. The student's father picked up the line and said, thanks for calling, we'll definitely get that extra page for you. The next day, the student's mother comes storming into the classroom. She happens to be an education assistant at the school. She demands to know where I got that number. I said that her son had put it on the contact sheet. Apparently, the parents are separated. She proceeded to tell me that I had no right to call that number, and that when there is a problem with their son, only she has the right to know. I told her, thanks, that's good to know. And that's when she dropped this bombshell. She says, if he hands in something that is incomplete, you fail him. You got that? Fail. Then she walked out of the classroom. This coming from a person who was supposed to help children succeed? I think there might be a reason the kid put his or her dad's number on the paper instead of his crazy mother. Can I say that? All right, if you like these stories, though, we got more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this one, so I'll catch you in that video, and thank you for watching this one with me.